Don't ride here. Ride here. Explore new horizons with Moto Freight. Proud sponsors of Under the Visor.
My name is Kathy Woods. I am one of the directors of Moto Freight, which is a company that specialises in the international transport of vehicles around the world, specialising in motorcycles, but we do cater for all vehicles. My father is Welsh, my mother is English. So I was born in South Africa, but my family history and heritage is entirely British. I don't tell many people out there. Kind of ruined that here. But yeah, no, I'm very proudly South African. I am very proudly South African, but I'm also proudly British. So we moved over to the UK when I was 7 years old. So I was just, it was a good time to move because I've got a younger brother as well. So it was a good time to move for us because it wasn't too disconcerting for us to relocate to an English school. We actually moved to Wales first, to near Bridgend. And then fairly shortly after that, we moved towards Heathrow, which is where we are now. I got my bike license before I got my car license, partially because the insurance was a heck of a lot cheaper on a motorcycle, but mainly because the motorcycle thing was always going to happen. My dad's always ridden bikes. My uncle's always ridden bikes. I've always loved bikes. So as soon as I could afford lessons, I started paying for bike lessons, and I saved up for a second-hand Kawasaki Zephyr, which was my first bike. And it was only a few years after that, when I had an accident and broke my femur, that I got my car license, because I had to be able to drive a vehicle for work, and I couldn't drive a bike while I had a splint down the inside of my leg. My first job while I was at school was as a courier for a freight company on Heathrow. And I used to work weekends on my motorcycle, clearing paperwork around Heathrow Airport. And there's a particularly dangerous roundabout near the Animal Reception Centre on the airport, and I had to take the last exit, which is notoriously bad because no one expects you to take it. It's quite a small exit, and the one before it is quite a major entrance into the roundabout. And I've had near accidents many times, but this time a car driver got the better of me, and he didn't technically hit me, but I had to take evasive action to avoid him because he pulled out in front of me at about 30 miles an hour. He didn't stop, he just pulled out in front of me, and I was going slightly too fast to be able to stop. So I took evasive action and actually accelerated, and I went round the front of him, which means I didn't get hit. It does unfortunately mean that I hit the lamppost and grip box immediately on the other side of the pavement, and I broke my right femur, and I was left lying on the floor with my bike propped up against the lamppost, and the driver didn't stop, he drove off. So although we didn't make contact, it is technically a hit and run, and we've never found out who it was. Luckily there was someone nearby who saw it happen, who called an ambulance and kind of looked after me from there. Not for a second, not for an absolute second. A lot of my friends, and my mother particularly, assumed that would be the end of my biking days, and I've never understood it, if I'm honest. I realise accidents are part of the risk. You know that every time you get on a bike. It's part of the environment that you're in. If that's a problem, you tend not to get on one in the first place. And I've got nothing but respect for people who don't get back on a bike after a big off. There's nothing wrong with that. But for me personally, it was never an option. As soon as my leg was better and the bike was repaired, I was back on it. I get asked all the time, what's the biggest trip I've done, or what's the next big trip? And because of what I do for a living, which is facilitate other people having big trips, it's actually quite difficult for me to take an extended length of time off work. So what I do is what many people do. I get away for shorter periods when I can. 2 years ago I did a 2-week trip through, I shipped the bike out to Bulgaria. We were testing a new supplier. We like to test our suppliers before we use them for customers' bikes. And I spent 2 weeks riding back from Bulgaria, and I went through Romania, Serbia, Kosovo, Bosnia, and Croatia, and then back through kind of France. Otherwise, I mean, that was absolutely amazing. Every part of that was brilliant. But if I can't do that, I'll get away for a weekend here or there. I went down to the Alps last year for 4 days with a friend. Literally bombed it down, spent 3 nights playing in the Alps, and then bombed it back again. When I can in the UK, I'll get away for a weekend or a long weekend. I'll go to Wales or the Shropshire Hills or Scotland, wherever. big trips are amazing. They're absolutely fantastic, and I love that we support other people being able to do them, and I do intend to do 1 or 2 myself. But if you can't do that, if it's not the right time, you don't have the money, you don't have that much time off work, getting away for a short period is just, it's just as exciting, it's just as amazing, and it is just as fulfilling. So for the minute, that's what I'm doing. I have a potential trip to Canada penciled in for 2019. I also have a potential trip to India. I've also been invited to go to Bishkek with a friend. Unfortunately, I can't fit that one in, but there are other trips potentially coming. But for the meantime, little trips here and there when I can get away. When I say big trip, I'm probably using the phrase, inaccurately, because obviously a big trip to some people is a big trip, a year plus. I'm very happy with a week or 2 here and there. I would love to do 4 to 6 weeks around South America, the northern part of South America, Colombia, Peru. I'd very, very much like to do that. Just because I think, from what I've heard of that part of the world, it's stunning, and I think it deserves to be done slowly and to really appreciate everything. And I wouldn't travel every day. I'd like to stop in a few places and just explore. So each to their own. I can't see myself taking a year-long trip anytime soon, and I'm not entirely sure it's the right thing for me to do, at least not now. But as long as I can get away here and there and just see different parts of the world, even if it's not on my bike, as long as I can travel, I don't mind. By and large, I absolutely don't see a downside. I just love it. I love working with people who are going on these trips. You get excited for them. When they deliver their bikes into you for the start of a trip, they've done the research. They're really excited about what's coming, and they're talking to you about all their plans, and you can't help but get, involved and excited for them. And I love that. And it's just as good when people come back at the end of a trip, because then now they're telling you what they actually did, which may not be what they planned to do, but they've always got stories, and they're usually good, but they might be a little bit bad, but because they're remembered with fondness, they kind of turn into good. So it's really, really fulfilling. What we do is absolutely amazing. Having said that, there have been a couple of days where you do just think, I would love to do what you've just done, and I have to listen to you and get excited for you, and I love it. And then I have to go back to my desk and carry on with paperwork, and I just really want to jump on my bike and go with you. As part of the fun, there are days where I don't like to say I'm jealous. I'm not a jealous kind of person, but there are days where I do think, wow, yes, I'd really like to do that. By and large, it's amazing. I'm actually going to learn how to paraglide this year, partially based on what a previous customer was telling me about he was doing on his trips, and it's something I've always wanted to do. And we got chatting about it, and I got involved in this conversation with him, and he just went, well, why don't you do it? I was like, that's a damn good question, and I don't know. There isn't a reason. So yeah, this year I'm going to learn to paraglide because of conversations I've had with customers. So there's always a positive to take out of what we do. Basically, my dad started motorcycle shipping in the UK as a specialism. He's worked in freight all his life, and he found this niche that he was exceptionally passionate about. And I love bikes, and I love travel, and I loved what he was managing to offer to people as a specialist service. And I thought it deserved the energy and narrow focus that something that important actually deserved. I was actually working with another company. I was an office manager for a vehicle rental firm. When we just got talking about potentially just focusing on motorcycles and vehicles and travellers and making this a real thing, just as a real specialism. And we got talking. We just said, you know what? Let's make it happen. Let's just do it. So we joined forces. We set up Motor Freight 5 years ago with purely that intention to make international travel possible for anybody and everybody. And that's what we work to do, is bring the prices down, make the process as simple as possible, and just make people realise that this is a possibility for you to get out there and do this on your own bike if that's what you want to do. My proudest moments with Motor Freight is, yeah, we have won a few industry awards which I'm exceptionally proud of, and they're fantastic, and we are very pleased with those. But the proudest moments of working for Motor Freight are when you help someone who's gone into trouble on the other side of the world and desperately needs to repatriate their bike back to the UK because something's going on in their life that they've had to change plans last minute. And we have helped quite a few people like this, and you're literally helping them out of a really tight spot. And when they thank you for that, it's a really amazing feeling. I mean, it's, you know, we do this job for people as much as for anything else. So when you get a sincere customer giving genuine thanks for really working with them on something, it's incredibly beautiful. And it's a bit general, but helping people fulfill their dreams is absolutely amazing. I was having a bad week one week last year. I was just having a bit of a tough week, and a previous customer just said, how could you possibly have a bad week? You make people's dreams come true as a living. And it was just the most amazing thing to hear, just kind of exactly when I needed to hear it. And I just thought, yeah, do you know what? We do, and that's pretty cool. So there are some standalone moments. I can't mention specific customers that we've helped, but by and large, every time a customer gives you their thanks, you know, you feel pretty good about life.
Don't ride here. Ride here. Explore new horizons with Moto Freight. Proud sponsors of Under the Visor.